Access to Democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center and Medi-Spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. With service built around courtesy, dignity, and respect, Mayo-trained Dr. Charles Crutchfield personally treats each patient and is acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. Truestone Financial, with locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, has proudly served its members since 1939. Truestone engages, educates, and supports its members to ensure they have the tools to empower their financial well-being. Truestone Financial, your neighborhood credit union. Learn more at truestone.org. Edina Eye Physicians and Surgeons, a division of Twin Cities Eye Consultants, has proudly served the Twin Cities for more than 55 years now in 7 convenient locations. Using the most advanced technology combined with human touch, Edina Eye offers comprehensive services and dedicated specialists committed to excellence with innovative procedures and expertise for the most advanced eye care.
Welcome to another episode of Access to Democracy. I'm your host, Steve Francisco. It's my pleasure to welcome back to our studio today a return visitor, Dakota County 4th District Commissioner Joe Atkins. Joe, thank you for joining us today. Welcome to Access to Democracy.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, Steve.
Good to have you with us. So tell us briefly, in case people don't know, you represent District 4 currently. Those boundaries are about to change, and we're going to ask you to explain a little bit about that. But tell us, as it's currently set up, what cities or communities here in Dakota County do you represent on the Dakota County Board?
I represent Eagan, Rosemount, and Inver Grove Heights.
And it's about to change because of reapportionment?
It is, yeah. The 2020 census obviously took place, and once a decade then the lines get redrawn in order to keep a proportionate number of residents in each district.
So how are your boundaries changing in terms of the cities that you represent?
Mine are changing more than just about anybody else's. So I will, and I'm going to miss my friends and colleagues in Eagan and Rosemount that I represented for the entirety of the time that I've been on the county board. But my district will now change to still a large part of Inver Grove Heights, as well as South St. Paul and West St. Paul. So I shift significantly to the north.
Mm-hmm. For such a young-looking man, you've actually been in public office, several stints in different positions. Tell us just real quickly what your public service career has encompassed.
Well, first we need to update your prescription on your glasses, because if I'm a young-looking man, you obviously can't, either that or you're colorblind.
I don't know whose hair is whiter, yours or mine.
I'm just happy to have some. Yeah, I've been at it for a while. I actually enforced my own term limits. When I was a kid, I was 21, got elected to the Inver Grove Heights School Board, and actually retired from politics at age 24. I got married, I was going to practice law and do that. Then got sucked back in, got elected mayor when I was 26 of Inver Grove Heights, and remained mayor for 10 years until I got elected to the Minnesota House of Representatives. Served there from 2002 to 2016, and got elected to the county board, took office in 2017.
Just couldn't stay away from it, could you?
You know, it gets in your blood, and it was also the kind of thing, Steve, it wasn't necessarily in my family, you know, how I was raised that we were going to be elected to an office.
No.
But it was that you're going to be active in your community. It was just kind of expected of my brother and myself, and we do that. I mean, it's just part of giving back to the community that's raised us.
And in addition to serving in public office, you've practiced law for a number of years, too. You're a graduate of Mitchell College of Law before the merger with Hamline University, I might add. So.
Yeah, I worked my way through law school and started practicing in 1996, and worked downtown Minneapolis for about a dozen years total before I finally wised up and realized that most of my clients were coming from out in Dakota County anyway.
So why make that long commute?
Exactly. So I was sort of ahead of apparently with what's happened in COVID and telecommuting and all of that kind of stuff. folks wanting to be closer to home and working. I wasn't working from home per se, but I've had a law practice in South St. Paul for 25 years now.
Good. Let's talk about an issue right away, a county issue that I think probably comes to most voters' minds right away, and that is property taxes. And Dakota County actually had some good news this year that the county board passed a 0 increase in property taxes for this year. How is this possible given what we've been reading and witnessing with inflation and costs of everything going up? How was the county board able to do that?
Magic. It was actually, no, we've gone 2 years in a row now, Steve, with 0 tax increase. And we did that. What prompted it, of course, was folks going through COVID. It's difficult economic times for a lot of folks, and so we just thought if there was ever a time to do our best to really sharpen our pencil and prevent tax increases. But it also reinforced the fact that Dakota County is still the lowest property tax per person of any county in Minnesota. Out of all 87 counties, we have the very lowest. Now, if anybody that's paying property taxes is right now saying, I don't care, they're still too high. But we just do our best to deliver good bang for the buck. We've got a tremendous staff that reflect kind of the board's desire to try to get as much bang for the dollar as we possibly can. In terms of the how, it's really not magic. It's the fact that we're really good at partnering with others to get good things done. So we have, I would venture to say, probably more success at getting outside grant dollars than just about anybody.
Right, we're talking about money coming in from Washington, federal grant money, as well as state grant money too.
Or even non-tax sources of revenue. So it's we've just had such great partners that have, and we partner also with our cities. I'll give you a quick example, Dakota 911, which is our dispatch. So if you dial into 911, that's actually, in most places, that's run by one entity or another. We actually, starting 16 years ago now, partnered with our local communities, all 11 cities across Dakota County. As a result, has saved about $15 million by partnering together.
Because those individual communities didn't have to run their own 911
Well,
systems.
and when you're doing it on your own, you're not doing it as efficiently as if we are partnering up together. And then beyond that, and most importantly when it comes to 911, it's also incredibly fast. It's efficient. It gets word out, and when minutes count or even seconds count, that's a really big deal. So
very interesting.
It's not just dollars; it's good service.
In addition to the county board having 0 property tax increase for 2 years in a row, which really strikes me as remarkable, it's also happening at the same time that we've seen significant appreciation in home values here in Egan and across Dakota County, and actually nationwide. There are certain parts of the country we've seen very significant increases in home prices, sales prices, and also significant increases in rent, which hits renters very hard. But that's really even more remarkable when you consider it in that context, that the county has been able to hold the line on these property tax increases.
Well, that's actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one, there's the cynics of the world who are like, all right, Atkins, you're telling us you did 0 tax increase, but my valuation went up, so therefore the amount that I pay into the county went up. Actually, that's not happening. If you are seeing the average, so as homes, the average I believe was 14.5%. It was historic, a record-setting amount of appreciation the last couple of years. But if you saw the average amount of increase, your taxes, your county taxes, to which that you pay to Dakota County, not necessarily the schools or the cities, but the amount that you pay to the county still went up 0. And in fact, I got a call from somebody in Egan who said, wanted to report a mistake on their property taxes because their valuation had gone up about 12%, and yet their county property tax, the portion that they paid to Dakota County, actually went down $11. So they knew it had to be a mistake. And I said, no, actually, that's
right.
That's the situation that we're in. If you went up more than 14%, then you might see a little bit of increase in what you pay to the county.
Right.
But
you do a really, my opinion, and I think other people too would probably agree, you do an exceptional job of keeping in touch with your constituents. You do regular town hall meetings, you do frequent newsletters to county residents, updating them on your activities and your colleagues on the Dakota County Board. One of your recent newsletters had an interesting demographic fact that I was not aware of. Most of us, all we hear about demographics is that we're getting older in Minnesota. And you and I are part of that baby boom generation that are now getting a little bit older. But the 2020 census data you reported showed that the average age of Dakota County residents is among the youngest in Minnesota, that the average age of county residents is 38.7 years old. That's really a remarkable thing, isn't
Well, it's
it?
because of guys like you and me, Steve. We're actually aging backwards. Was it Benjamin Button
I wish
or one
that
of the
were so. Yeah, Benjamin Button.
My body tells me differently every morning when I wake up. But yeah, we've got a few different factors at work there. There's more people moving into Dakota County. They tend to be young couples that are starting families, having children. And so as a result, that drives down our average age a little bit.
And that's interesting. They find our county to be an attractive place because of the quality of its schools, the quality of the homes here, the quality of our parks, and frankly, quality of our public services, police, firefighting, all the rest.
Yeah, no, we have a really nice, and I joked when I first got elected to the county board, my number one goal was not to screw it up, because we're on a pretty good trajectory in Dakota County. I mean, and in fact, in the last 5 years now, we've been debt-free, paid off all of the county's debts. We're one of the few in the nation
So
who've
we
done
have
that.
a top bond rating.
We've got top bond, well, we don't even need a top bond rating because we don't borrow any money.
We don't borrow.
But we do have a top bond rating. We got the best, named the best county in the country nationally for public safety and for public health. And then, of course, our schools, year after year, are rated in the top 10% of the schools in the nation. Not just one or two high schools across Dakota County, but literally every single high school in Dakota County by U.S. News and World Reports is listed in the top 10%. So we got a transportation system, we got a lot of things in addition to our parks and our trails.
Going for us.
And then, as you noted, taxes aren't too bad. I think I just saw, well, I don't think, I know I just saw that taxes in Ramsey County are 55% higher than in Dakota County. So there's a lot going for it, and it's bringing a lot of good young folks to Dakota County, which apparently is bringing our age down a smidge.
Yeah.
Although I think collectively, everybody's aging. We're hearing
Yes.
about across Minnesota, across the country.
Right.
We've got this silver tsunami going on.
Let's talk about that demographic change, even though, as we just noted, we have a lower median age than many of us might have realized. We do have a proportion of our population that are getting older. They're selling their homes. They're maybe moving in. I have neighbors in my townhouse complex here in Eagan who have moved into senior living facilities. How are some of the demographic changes related to aging going to change Dakota County in the next 5 to 10 years as you see it? And how is that going to affect things like our tax base?
Well, and we're seeing it. It's not just the next 5 or 10 years. It's
Right
the next
now.
5 or 10 minutes. I mean, we've never seen the kind of demand for our senior housing. So we've got Dakota County CDA. It's a community development agency. Has about 3,000 units of senior housing, affordable style senior housing. People do not want to leave Dakota County, and yet it's hard to find affordable senior housing in Dakota County. So we've got what the county does. The waiting lists, unfortunately, are so long. So my hope is that will be an area that will be able to continue growth, and that does two good things. Number one is it keeps folks who are aging, they're able to age, if not in their home, at least relatively close to their home. But then it also frees up or opens up more affordable housing for new people that want to move in. And affordability when it comes to housing has been maybe it's tempering now with the interest rates going up, mortgage rates going up, but it's really become an expensive place in many parts of across Dakota County.
It's a real problem, as we mentioned earlier, especially for renters too.
Right.
And these may be younger people or people who have jobs that perhaps don't pay as much, and yet they need to be able to afford a place to live for themselves and their families too.
And we want them here. This isn't cheap housing or cheap apartments, or run-down kinds of things. This is where somebody who's a first-year teacher or a first-year firefighter can find someplace affordable. A server or a cashier can find an affordable place to live that's relatively close to where they work. So it's been a real challenge. We're hoping that we're having some success with what the county's done. There's also builders that are building more of that style product, but you just can't seem to keep up with the demand.
Right.
Lots of folks want
Continuing. Let's talk about something that was a very good piece of news. Recently, one of your newsletters noted that we have 70 acres in Dakota County that include a dozen lakes and wetlands near the Inver Grove Heights-Rosemount border that were just recently preserved. Tell us a little bit more about that briefly.
It's so cool, Steve. And it's part of a larger effort that dates back about 20 years. We're closing in now, I believe, on about 12,000 acres across the county that have been permanently preserved, protected because what brought many folks to Dakota County, what kept them here, we kind of like our natural areas. We like a little open space, a little elbow room. And this was our latest. It's the McManamy family right on the Rosemount-Inver Grove border got together, and it started out as one McManamy, but of course as the family grew, one of our individuals at the county was able to work with all the various family members on an effort that, again, mostly grant funded, I might add, which was really nice to see, but to permanently protect those 70 acres. So that those mature oaks, 100-year-old, probably 150-year-old oaks, and pristine water ponds, and it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous
that
area.
grant money you mentioned was from the state's Outdoor Heritage Fund, so it was a state of Minnesota grant that helped the county do this. And I have to say, I think you're absolutely right. One of the key assets of living in Egan and in Dakota County, my wife and I we absolutely love going to Lebanon Hills Park and walking on those hiking trails. And more than once I've commented to her, I've said, it feels like we're in northern Minnesota. Yeah. We're right in the middle of a major metropolitan area. Yeah. And yet you feel like acres. You're up north.
Yeah, you feel like you're 100 miles away from the nearest city, and yet you're right in the heart of a suburban county.
You might occasionally hear an airplane taking off from MSP going over, but if you don't hear that and you look at the scenery around Jensen Lake and Holland Lake and Lebanon Hills Park, we're so fortunate to have that, because a lot of suburban areas don't have those kind of assets.
And then combine that with the volunteers and the support we've had from groups like Wilderness in the City, for example, that have been there to do restorative. So we've obviously, everybody's got a little buckthorn, everybody got a little garlic mustard seed. Well, we've got this awesome group of volunteers and supporters that get into those parks, along with our own county crews, and including folks like me, that have been doing our best to restore the areas that have been infested with buckthorn, and we've made such progress. I mean, I believe it's over 1,200 acres now that we've accomplished, we collectively, because it's been a huge amount of work by a great number of people. But that's why you can still see the lakes and enjoy the pass, is because there's been
the work of volunteers is so important. Dakota County has been a national leader. I think there's a great rising consciousness on the part of Minnesotans and people all over our country, all over the world, about the impacts that we're seeing from climate change. Minnesota is not immune to that either. I recall the state climatologist a few years ago predicted that over the next 20 to 50 years that Minnesota's climate is changing. We're going to look more like South Dakota than we currently do, which means a little bit drier, perhaps not as much rainfall. We're coming out of the effects of a pretty moderate drought this summer. But that has impacts on the kind of plants that can grow in Minnesota, the kinds of agricultural crops that we can grow, impacts on the tourism industry in northern Minnesota that generates so much revenue and creates so many jobs. So here in Dakota County, we've been leading, and I understand that in 2023, Dakota County will be generating twice as much electricity as our buildings use with 100% renewable sources. Yeah. And we're talking about solar, wind power?
Both, but the game changer there is the Billsby Dam. So we are one of the few counties in the country that owns our own dam. And we somewhat backed into it because nobody else wanted the dam. I hate to say that. I'd like to say we were just so far thinking in our thoughts that we saw the day. But Billsby Dam is down in the southeast corner of the county. It's a hydroelectric dam. It's 111 years old now, and as you mentioned, so are the turbines that were inside of it. So they generate a little bit of electricity, but we've been in the process of upgrading those. They will be online in 2023. And as a result, you just read it, we will more than generate more electricity than we use as a
That's
county
a
government
remarkable
organization.
achievement. I mean, what other counties in America do you know of that can boast that?
You know, I keep asking to the extent that I run across folks that are connected on a national level with counties. I've not found one yet. And so we might be alone in that, but the bottom line is it's important to do. It also saves our taxpayers. You talked about why our property taxes are modest, why we're debt free. It's because we make investments like that pay off on an ongoing basis for years to come. Those turbines, the last turbines last us 110 years. I'm guessing these will last us many decades to come.
Should last a long time, long after we're gone.
And with electricity prices going up, it just means more revenue coming into the county for those kilowatts that we sell.
Joe, as we all know, we're coming out of a really horrific pandemic the past several years with COVID-19. But Dakota County seniors made news because we really did something really remarkable here, that we achieved a vaccination rate for persons age 65 or older, a vaccination percentage of 99%.
It's just,
how can that be?
We got some really smart seniors here, Steve. And we don't, now keep in mind, by the way, we don't require vaccination here in Dakota County. We just, we've got a terrific group in our public health team that if people want to be vaccinated, they want to make sure that it's accessible to them. And unfortunately, when you get, my color hair, sometimes maybe you don't get around quite as well. So we wanted to make certain from our public health standpoint that we had vaccinations and boosters available for people where they are if they wanted to take advantage of that. And boy, did they, to the point where Kaiser Health and all these national publications stood up and took notice of the fact that Dakota County was leading the nation. So they were all coming in here, NBC News and all these various places, trying to find out what we were doing.
When I read the statistic about 99%, I thought, you can't get 99% of anyone to do anything. And yet they apparently have, and having these tremendous results for our county and statewide too. Yeah, really remarkable. I understand too, speaking of COVID, that Inver Grove Heights recently unveiled the first monument in the state of Minnesota dedicated to our first responders. We're talking about frontline workers, medical personnel, police, firefighters, other people who didn't have the option to work from home, but had to actually physically show up at their work sites during the past 2.5 years of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, it was neat to see because there were so many essential workers. They didn't have a choice. A lot of folks had the option whether they'd stay home or not stay home, go into the office or not. These are folks that were showing up every day, going that extra mile, doing what needed to be done. So to our nurses and our healthcare personnel and our teachers and cashiers and everybody who was on the front line, this monument was the first of its kind in Minnesota. It was donated anonymously. It's in Heritage Village Park, and on Thursday, September 8th, from 4 to 7, there is a Hometown Heroes Cookout for anybody that falls into that category, and just as important, their family members to come and get a free hamburger or a hot dog.
Come and celebrate, a way to show appreciation for what they've done during the pandemic.
A little opportunity for us to say thank you, and to their families, because every one of those people that fits into that category, the first people that they'll identify are their own family members. Sometimes they didn't even get to see them when they got home. They'd go and they'd isolate it.
Because they had been exposed.
Yep. So they'd go downstairs. The kids and the spouse would be upstairs. So a lot of sacrifices.
Let's talk about a subject that I think is on a lot of voters' minds these days. Dakota County has earned the nation's top award for public safety and crime prevention from the National Association of Counties. We beat out 3,000 counties nationwide. Crime is a concern, and sadly we have seen some of the crime that you've heard about in urban areas in Minneapolis and St. Paul has migrated to suburban areas. We've had carjackings. We've had some incidents that are very unfortunate that have happened recently at the Imagine Theater in Eagan. We've had catalytic converter thefts. So what is the county's position? What has the county been able to do to make residents safer here?
Yeah, well, let's keep in mind, by the way, the fact that we've got the public safety award across the nation doesn't mean that we don't have crime.
Right.
Everybody's got some level of crime. What I appreciate, though, is the way that our sheriff's department has worked with local departments across the county on a whole variety of efforts to try to lessen crime, and then also to try to get at it before it occurs. So there's awful lots of efforts on the crime prevention side. There's also terrific efforts that are going on with respect to crisis intervention and de-escalation before things become, and even, you know, it's one thing to have a traffic ticket or something like that. It's entirely another for that to erupt into a dispute with an officer, and it becomes much bigger, less safe situation. So.
And sometimes those have been incidents involving confrontations between police and citizens, mental health issues on the part of people suspected of committing crimes or...
Yeah, more than 60% of the inmates in the county jail suffer from either mental health issues or chemical dependency or both. And the Sheriff Tim Leslie is retiring this year, but he has been an enormous advocate for mental health treatment, chemical dependency treatment, so that when folks come into the jail, it's not just a matter of having them stew in there, it's getting them some assistance so that when they come out, there's a less likely chance that they're going to come back.
Right.
And things like the crisis intervention side that prevents a bad situation from becoming worse. Embedding social workers with our local police departments, enormously successful. What used to take, so in West St. Paul, I was talking to an officer, they had, last year, it was 2020, they had made 69 visits to the same home. And it was clearly a mental health situation that they were dealing with. Once they had a social worker that was intervening sooner, it brought those numbers, not just at that home, but across some of those frequent call homes, so that the social worker could get at the issue sooner and the officer could be on the road doing his or her job, protecting the community.
Joe, you are seeking re-election to another term on the Dakota County Board, and we're down to about 1:20 minutes here. I want to give you a chance to make your pitch. Why should the voters of Dakota County re-elect you as their commissioner on the Dakota County Board?
Well, I'll just do my best not to mess it up, Steve. That was
how you started out.
Well, I appreciate the question. I do the best job that I can to serve as many people as I possibly can. My goal, you're reading from a newsletter, or excerpts of a newsletter. I do my darndest to stay in touch with folks so that we know what's going on. And then at the end of the day, it's about performance, not just promises. And we've proven performance. We're debt-free, been named the best county in the nation for public health and public safety. I'll run on that.
That sounds like a pretty impressive record to run on, and a good solid one that I think people can relate. I don't see a lot of my neighbors looking to move away saying how terrible life is in Dakota County. In fact, they say quite the opposite. At National Night Out recently, I joked with some of my neighbors, they're going to have to carry my wife and I out of our house someday because we're not leaving or going anywhere. Dakota County Commissioner Joe Atkins, District 4, thank you so much for appearing on Access to Democracy. Thank you for your work on behalf of the citizens of Dakota County. And come back and see us again.
Will do. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.